right then, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you once again to Deliverance 401. This is class number 4, and last week we were talking about Jezebel and narcissism, and we had some really good dialogue. A lot of you guys are putting a lot of good comments in on chat box, as well as your for those of you that are bold enough to raise your hand and talk. You guys had some great comments. Then also during the week, I had some really good conversations with some of the students, and people can understand how now this thing that we call Jezebel and the narcissistic personality disorder really meshes, one being the spirit of Jezebel, which causes the narcissistic disruption or the narcissistic personality disorder. So what I thought we would do tonight is continue down that vein of talking about Jezebel and narcissism. One class simply was not enough to share with you what needs to be released to help you guys not just get free yourself, but also how to minister to other people that are affected by Jezebel, either targeting Jezebel or harboring the spirit of Jezebel themselves. I want to remind you, perhaps this is your first time getting on, to raise your hand if you have a question, and then you can ask your question live via your voice, or you can type in something in the chat box, and I'd be more than happy to look at those. Sometimes we miss some things, but nonetheless, we'll do the best we can. That being said, what I want to talk about, and actually this is the last part of your presentation, that your materials that you have, I'm going to talk about how to spot a narcissist. We use the NARC for short. How to spot a narcissist, or how to spot someone who is operating out of a spirit of Jezebel. Okay, we'll talk about that, and then also what we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to talk about gaslighting, and then of course Mama Dixie is going to come in, and she is going to share her testimony of her previous marriage. Mind you, some 35 years ago, but what she went through, and I believe, excuse me, that'll be a blessing to you guys. So let's go right into this. So how do you spot somebody? What are some of the signs of somebody, being a potential Jezebel or potentially a narcissist? Okay, and we'll go through this, and I want to say to you students that just because somebody has one of these features doesn't mean they're Jezebel, or doesn't mean they're a narcissist. We have to, as deliverance ministers, we have to, number one, use discernment. Number two, be thoroughly trained to understand some things, which is what you're doing. And then, not just indiscriminately categorize people or, as being a Jezebel. There are people that do operate with that spirit, but just because somebody is controlling in some degree, at some point, doesn't necessarily mean that they're Jezebel. So we have to be careful that we just don't label people, because that can be hurtful to people. Obviously, if you discern it and your training proves out that this is a spirit of Jezebel in operation, then clearly you deal with it. So you shouldn't be afraid to, say, hey, you have a spirit of Jezebel. I do it. When I do it, the motivation has to be love, not hurt, not retaliation, not trying to belittle or demean somebody, but out of love, because you want to help them and you want to explain to them, how you see a spirit of Jezebel in operation, and kind of how it's been affecting them. So. But how do you spot one? Well, one of the things that I found is that the person typically is very likable, at least initially. Initially, they're very likable, okay? Now, this can be a spouse, somebody you were courting perhaps, you ended up marrying, and then it's like a Jekyll and a Hyde type thing. You married them, they were great, then all of a sudden they turned into, you know, the monster that they are. It could be a friendship. Friendship starts out very nice, very comforting, they're very likable. Then all of a sudden they turn into a shapeshifter and shift on you, but because the fangs are already in, per se, now you're stuck in that relationship. So you may try to get out of it, but it's going to be very, very difficult because the spirit of Jezebel in operation and that narcissistic personality has a way to do Jezebel's bidding and keep you bound. But that's something you have to watch out for. Leaders, pastors, obviously pastors are very charismatic. Now there's nothing wrong with being charismatic and having some type of charisma, but and there's nothing wrong with being likable, okay? But what I'm saying is that is one of the indicators. Typically, initially, very, very likable. You will also find out that they typically make the conversation about them. It's all about them. Anything you talk about gets twisted, gets manipulated, gets rerouted to focus in on them. Even when it comes to perhaps giving someone some accolades or giving somebody the praise that they deserve for an accomplishment or, you know, a pat on the back, something they do. The spirit of Jezebel and the narcissist, what they will do is they will come in and quickly try to manipulate the conversation about them. Now, I want to share a book with you guys. It's called Why Is It Always About You? And this is a book, it's called The 7 Deadly Sins of Narcissism. It's by Sandy Hotchkiss. And she is a clinical doctor who has written this book. It's the only book that I have of her, but it's a very good book, and I would recommend it if you want to get it. There's a lot of literature out there. But you can pick up a copy of this on Amazon. I think I pay what I pay here, like $15 or something like that. But you can also, I think on my YouTube page where I have other authors that I recommend, it's there if you want to order this on Amazon. But it's a pretty good book. I haven't finished it yet. It's from what I've read so far, it gives a lot of good information, and that's what this is all about. Getting information, getting educated. Talks about childhood. You know, when you're involved with a narcissist, perhaps narcissistic parents. Narcissistic mothers are a very big topic. I was talking to a person that's in the medical profession and psychiatrists, and they were saying that that's a major issue with mothers that are narcissistic, specifically the effect that it has on their sons. So we have to watch out for that. The other thing is they fabricate. Okay, a narc will fabricate and exaggerate events. They will say things, you know, like they went somewhere or went to an event or something happened to them. Perhaps they went to a meeting and they were in the meeting, and let's say, let me think of something. T.D. Jakes was in the meeting. They will exaggerate and say that they met T.D. Jakes, they know T.D. Jakes, they talked to T.D. Jakes. Sometimes they even manipulate to where they'll try to take a picture with T.D. Jakes either in the background or go to that particular person and take a lot of different pictures with that person. And they'll immediately look to post these things on social media to get people to think something different about them that's certainly not true. So they will exaggerate. They'll exaggerate things that they've accomplished. They'll exaggerate their day. They'll exaggerate things that happen to them, perhaps even in a marriage. Something can happen, something very small, but when they talk about that small thing in a group of other people, they may exaggerate that thing, probably with the intent of demonizing. Like I said, if it's a spouse, maybe demonizing the other spouse, or if it's a friendship, demonizing that friend or what have you. Or, could be a leader, whatever. It doesn't have to be a leader. It could. I've seen this with congregants against leadership, where they will exaggerate the events, talk to other people, begin to gossip among the congregation, and then what ends up happening is they slander that leader, they gossip about that leader, and they demonize that leader, really trying to get everybody else on their side. This is a huge strategy of the enemies, huge strategy of Jezebel to demonize other people, to get people on her side, is what it's all about. So that's one of the things you have to watch about as it pertains to a narcissist. Cassandra says, sounds like the roots are rejection. There is, I mean, and that is something that hi Marcia, you can turn off your webcam, because you would be the only one. Not that we don't mind seeing you, but like I said, you'd be the only one. So you should be able to hear me fine, though, and we'll go from there. But it was wonderful seeing you. So that's something you have to watch out for. Also, a narcissist will twist everything you say. Man, this is really big. They will, exaggerate events, fabricate things, but twist what you say. You can even, I've seen narcissists, I've seen Jezebels that you can say, I love you, and they'll twist it and say something like, well, you said that because you must be doing something wrong, or are you plotting on me? Because of the deep insecurity that, of course, they've masked over with the narcissistic personality. But because of that deep insecurity, and just like Cassandra said, rejection, and they're trying to find this identity for themselves, again, what they will do is they will twist everything, and it's based out of an internal rejection that somehow you must be plotting on them to hurt them, to manipulate them, to control them, to abuse them, whatever it may be. And of course, they're not going to have any of that. So what they do is they will immediately twist things you say or things you do, and take, their goal is to obviously have dominion over you, or to dominate you. So that's something else that you have to watch for. The other thing is they refuse to answer in a concise way. They beat around the bush a lot. They divert. I've seen this. Boy, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. But you talk to somebody, and maybe you're inquiring about something that went wrong, and you begin to ask them the questions. Well, I heard that you were late to the meeting, or I heard that you made some phone calls, and in your phone calls it kind of took away from what I wanted the other person to do, and so on. And immediately they won't say yes, I did that, or whatever. They will immediately begin to divert and shift into other ways. One of the things about Jezebel is it knows when it's getting close to being found out. And if it starts to get boxed into a corner, one of the things that it will do is, when it's asked questions, it will just beat around the bush. It'll just, many times it won't answer. They'll answer the question with another question. I see this a lot, especially from what I call social media Jezebels, or social media narcissists that are out there trying to govern social media, as it were, from a church or Christian perspective. I'll ask them a question, they won't answer. They'll just ask me another question, and that's designed because, again, they want to have the upper hand. That's what it's all about. Remember, to Jezebel, it's all about control, right? It's all about staying in control. Another thing that you have to watch out for is, this is big as well. They'll name drop. They'll name drop again. They'll say they know somebody that perhaps they don't, or if they do know them, they don't know them in that capacity. But they're always name dropping. I have a lot of experience in working or dealing with people over the years, and I remember this one person who said that they knew that all they were talking about, because we would pray a lot, and we had prayer meetings, and they we'd have like our noonday prayer and stuff like that. Well, one of the things that they did is they began to say how they knew Juanita Bynum, and how, as it pertains to prayer, Juanita Bynum, told them how to pray, or shared with them how to pray, and how to get on the threshing floor, and all the stuff that Juanita Bynum talks about, whatever. And we'll say, and this person said, I know Juanita Bynum. I know her. She's talked to me and all that. Well, we actually did some research, because I didn't believe it. We actually did some research, and one of the things that we found out was that it wasn't that they knew Juanita Bynum. They did not know Juanita Bynum. They knew somebody that got close to Juanita Bynum and was able to say something like, "Hi, how are you?" And of course, Juanita Bynum said, "Oh, had a little small talk, some small in the corner conversation. How you doing? Doing well? Okay, yeah, nice to see you. Bye." Well, the person who was there then said to us and other people, and began to toot their horn and said that they knew Juanita Bynum. So they'll name drop in order to make people think that they're important. Because to a narcissist, remember, to a narcissist, that's what they want. They want it to be, again, all about them, and they want to steal the show from everybody. So you may say one thing, and they'll say something else. You may say, again, even like I said, accolades, that you accomplish something, and they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I've done that too." I see this a lot when I'm ministering. People, I'll start or counseling somebody, and I'll say something, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I know all about that. I've been through that. I understand all that." That's not the way you communicate with people. Even if you did know something about it, it's not normal to cut people off and say, "Oh yeah, I know all about that." Well, you know what you know, but you don't even know what I'm saying, other than perhaps the topic. But you don't know how I'm going to say it. You don't know my experiences versus perhaps somebody else's experience or your own experiences. But they'll immediately, because again, they'll just immediately cut you off. They won't even give you the benefit of that. They'll cut you off, and again, it's all designed to manipulate and control you and to dominate you. Okay? They have another thing to watch out for is they have an excuse for everything. They have an excuse for everything. Now you're not going to be given any leeway to have an excuse, or even a reason for that matter, in why you did not comply with their wishes. So for example, if it's a narcissistic husband and he stays out all night and then comes home in the wee hours of the morning, and the wife asks him the question, well, how come you didn't come home? Well, it'll be, well, I had a flat tire, and then Joe came by, and I saw him. I kind of flagged him down because I recognized his car, and when I recognized it, then Joe came over and we talked for a little bit because Joe was going through something, and then we talked about the tire, and then all of a sudden Joe looked at my left tire and found out, hey, that tire's bald. We need to deal with that. And it's just this merry-go-round. I mean, it's so dramatic. It's unbelievable. And that would be their excuse. Now, if you were to do something like that, then that wouldn't fly. Okay, you would be attacked. You would be your character would be assassinated. They would go round and around in a dramatic way. Basically, that's designed to wear you out. Okay, it's designed to wear you out. So again, they have an excuse for everything. Okay, I know I've seen it with congregants. You'll ask them a question, why they did this, why they didn't do that, and again, it's always an excuse for everything. Doesn't matter what it is. Okay, so they'll come up with an excuse for everything. Another thing to watch out for as it pertains to a narcissist is they lack empathy. They lack empathy. They don't consider anyone else. Everyone else is beneath them. They're not concerned about other people's problems unless they listen to you to hear your problem in order to manipulate you and to have you become in their supply system where you feel that they are the person that can solve your problems. And again, then they will, then they will have a false compassion towards you, false empathy, And what they're trying to do is to actually, and this is male or female, they'll attempt to get you to look at them as a mother or father figure, okay, in a perverted manner, whereby, you know, you're soul tied to them for a very long time, or perhaps your entire life. Okay, this is how soul ties in relationships, foul, toxic relationships, are established. Okay, so they don't, you know, and if there's any pain that you're going through, specifically pain that they inflicted, it could be, and again, I'll use a marriage for example. It could be a man who is arguing with his wife, begins to yell at her, begins to criticize her, belittle her, runs out like a little child, like a baby, storms out the house, comes back in, he's still, you know, PO'd, he's punching holes through the wall. Of course, that's designed as a tactic of intimidation, okay, to bring fear, because one of the greatest things that a narcissist or somebody who's, you know, has a spirit of Jezebel, one of the greatest things they try to do is basically to have you live in fear. That fear is designed so you will not confront it, that you'll just accept it, that you'll be in a dysfunctional, septic, toxic relationship, and you'll normalize it. You'll say, well, it is what it is. He's a good man, you know, deep down inside. Yeah, he beats me. Yeah, he talks about me. Yeah, the children don't have a relationship with him. Yeah, he doesn't have any affection towards me, or whatever it may be. At the end of the day, he really doesn't care, okay, because it's all about him, okay? Or if it's a female, it's all about her, okay? And if you're in pain because of that, you're going through some emotional pain, maybe you got some prior wound that still has not, you know, you haven't brought closure to it, you haven't been healed in that area, that Jezebel narcissist will pick at that and play games with you to get you to understand that you need that Jezebel, or you need that narcissist. The narcissist must have a system where people are dependent on them, where people look up to them. This is why they look for people that will flatter them. Okay, if you flatter a narcissist, then they look at you as someone that can be part of their supply chain to continually or perpetually bring flattery, because that's going to stroke their ego, that's going to fortify and strengthen the demonic stronghold they have in their mind of who they think they are, but they're really not. Okay, you got that? Okay, so again, and if you know, it could be a situation where you, and again, this can be friendships, this can be marriages, it could be families, it can be church leaders or church congregants, businesses. But if something's done or something's said and you're hurt, next thing you know, maybe you're crying, you're very upset. You know, you're in a severe, you have a lot of anxiety, you're severely depressed, even to the point where you would contemplate suicide. To a narcissist, they don't care. They really don't care, because they're so bound that you committing suicide would actually strengthen them with everybody else, because now it's going to look like you were the problem. You had all the issues, when really they just drove you crazy, is what ends up happening. Okay? Let's see, Sherry says, crazy, listen to your problems to manipulate you. Oh yeah, all the time. They will become a sounding board initially to hear everything about you. Tell me about, you know, what did you go through? Oh, I went through this and that and the other, and I was in a bad relationship. Listen, can I just give you some good advice? Don't share your bad or sour relationships that you've had with other people to everybody else. Okay? There may be a few, perhaps if you're going through counseling, obviously you need to share some things if it's your pastor or leader, and you know that man or woman of God, you know, I can see you doing that. But starting to tell friends and family and everybody else, talking about, oh, look at all this stuff I've been through, whatever, that's dangerous. And a narc will look for that and have you, you know, share everything, and it's for the sole purpose of getting intelligence, getting information from you, to find out where your weak chain is, to find out what the weak link is in your life. And again, it could be rejection, it could be you were abused, it could be that you were molested, and all that other stuff. And initially, again, that's why I said, you know, they're initially likable, because they're going to show that hand where you actually think that they're being sympathetic, you actually think they're being compassionate, you actually think that they have some empathy, but they do not. Okay, that is smoke and mirrors. That is the painted face of Jezebel that would have you begin to put trust into that person. Okay, trust is something that many times you start out with, but trust is also something that has to be gained in some cases. Okay, so you have to use wisdom. You with me? Okay. All right. Now let's see what you said here. Wound pickers. Yeah, well, they do. They pick at your wound. They'll look for things in your life that you're not healed from. This is why I always tell people, before you start to deal with a Jezebel, or before you start to deal with a narcissist, perhaps it's a relationship or marriage, friendship, whatever, you have to deal with you. And in our books that we write, and in the book I'm in the process of writing, that's one of the things that I focus in on. I focus in on get yourself whole, deal with your wounds, because you know the old saying, right? Wounded people wound other people, or hurting people hurt other people. Okay, that's true, but also wounded people are targets for Jezebel and the narcissist. They will look for that because, again, it's all about control. And at the end of the day, you're weak. You're weak. They look for weak people. Okay, they look for people that are feeble-minded. They look for people that have some huge emotional issues or psychological issues. They don't mind that. They have no problem. I've seen it. I've ministered to many people, and I'm like, okay, this person needs some serious help. They may need some therapy. In some cases, the psychosis is so deep that they actually need there's a chemical imbalance. They actually need help in the area of medicine, okay, to bring some of the chemicals back in line so that they can, function to some degree, and then, of course, get some deliverance. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Victoria says, yeah, Jezebel causes people to think about suicide because Jezebel brings the spirit of death with it, like the case of Jezebel after Elijah. Yeah, and also the history of Jezebel with her daughter, Athaliah. She brought death in that she killed the offspring, right? She killed her own children. So, yeah, you're right. There is a spirit of death and destruction. Actually, it's a spirit of Apollyon, okay, that comes in and looks to kill, okay? And this is what the devil does. He comes to steal, to kill, and, of course, destroy, all right? Gabriella says, I've learned the hard way as well. Yeah, many of us have. Sherry, the painted face of Jezzy, that's good. Yeah, and then that's what it's all about. It's all about painting a masquerade. This is why we have, we talked last week about a overt and a covert Jezebel, or an overt and covert narc or narcissist. A covert, again, paints the face to try to look like, oh, they're so sweet, they're so kind, look at them, they're such a role model, such a wonderful citizen, such a great mother or a great father, such a great past. There's nothing, and it's done covertly, but behind the scenes, like perhaps with a leader, this is where you'll see a lot of leaders will actually begin to engage in homosexuality. They'll be on the down low. They may be married to a first lady, but she's nothing more than a figure, and now they're sleeping with dudes, okay, guys, when they go to these conventions and things of that nature, or they're sleeping with other women. Now, I'm not saying this, just out of the blue. I'm saying this because I know of cases I know of facts. I know of people that have done this, and I've rebuked some people for doing it when I know about it. And it's sad, but that's because it's covert. And I've seen pastors. I've seen, unfortunately, you know, they're one too many. I'm not saying the majority, because that wouldn't be true, but I've seen more than enough of pastors or leaders who are covert Jezebels or covert narcissists, very controlling, but they make it look like they're so holy, so spiritual, so loving, so caring, so anointed, and all this other stuff. But behind the scenes, and I'm giving you facts now, behind the scenes, you know, here we have a 50-year-old pastor sleeping with an 18-year-old praise, you know, girl in the praise team, and then another 19-year-old, and so on, even to the point where he got a girl pregnant and funded the abortion. So this is true talk. This is not something I'm making up. This is real life, you guys. And again, knowing that person, of course, they don't have anything to do with me now, but knowing that person, you know, and I said it, they were Jezebel and a narcissist, very controlling, very manipulating, very dominating. I could give you stories on this, I mean, about the stuff I've seen and heard live in helping people trying to break free from that, and it's just appalling, just unbelievable. So this is, like I said, real stuff. Also, a narcissist, another sign to watch for is they will never receive correction. You can't correct them. You can't correct them. Correction is immediately going to be interpreted as criticism, which is much different than correction. And typically what they'll do is they'll lash back out at you, they'll attack you to shut you down, to do exactly what somebody was saying here, yeah, what Victoria was saying about Jezebel, you know, threatening and intimidating Elijah. Basically, it was designed to shut him down. And if you know the story, the mighty Elijah ran. I mean, we don't hear anything after that really about Elijah. You don't hear anything about his strength, about, you know, doing great things for the Lord. Not to say that he didn't do some things. That's not what I'm saying. But you don't see anything because he kind of just falls off. It required somebody else, Jehu, to come in and actually contend with Jezebel, because that spirit, I really believe, got, you know, I mean, Elijah was powerful, but he ended up wanting to commit suicide, hiding in a cave, had a huge pity party, and never truly recovered to the degree that, you know, the Elijah that he once was. Okay? Let me see here. What do we got here? Okay, Lewis, I was wounded not knowing my father and having a mother that always left me at the age of 16. I got married to a person that showed me love, but come to find out she was a Jezebel, okay, that kept me from my family and did terrible things to me being 10 years older. This is what happens to people who have rejection and dysfunction. Yeah, I mean, you're right on in their life. They run to false love, precisely. They run to false love because of an undeveloped core. That is actually a chapter in the book I'm writing, Lewis. It's called The Undeveloped Core. So I'll talk more about that in the book. This was many years ago, but now I know what happened back then through my training, and I'm getting this fixed in my soul 25 years later. And that's great, and that's how it should be, and I applaud you for that. And I just want to be real clear here. Everybody has, I've yet to meet somebody, I don't care who they are, I don't care what their name is, I don't care any of that. Everybody has some type of issue. Everybody has a demon or two or 1,000. Everybody has something. And again, depending on what happened when you were young, in your case, it could become a major thing to where, you know, what you stated happened can happen to a lot of people, and it does. I mean, that's why I said last week this was what we're talking about here is critically important. It's critically important because it affects so many people. I mean, I wrote 3 books on Jezebel. I got a 4th. It's not about Jezebel, but it's about the petrified soul. Okay, and the amount of people that have contacted our ministry, bound, afflicted, attacked by the narcissistic Jezebel spirit is unbelievable. I mean, it's literally unbelievable. I put one video out there. I looked at it today. I didn't even know this. Almost 40,000 views. 40,000, and I just put that out there almost a year ago now. 40,000 views. It's going to go over 100,000 views, okay? Because people have this problem. People are afflicted, or people are operating as Jezebel. So we have to train people to understand this, and we cannot just spiritualize things and say you're a Jezebel because somebody has a controlling feature. No, we have to know more about it. Okay. All right. Yes, I felt the rage when I would correct. Yeah, you're gonna get that backlash, that retaliation. Victoria says, when you try to defend yourself, just more guilt and blame heaped upon you. Well, yeah, and typically what a Jezebel will do as you begin to approach it or contend with it or challenge it or identify it or expose it, then many times you're then lashed out at, and now Jezebel calls you the Jezebel. That's designed to get everybody to focus in on you. It's that diversion that I was talking about. Okay. It's all about, Gabriella, it's all about overcoming and aligning with the kingdom. Yep, I couldn't agree more with that statement. Sherry says, mine was Arrested Development. It sucked. I sucked. God is making things better. Yeah, and now, Sherry, you'll really appreciate the book that's coming out in September about the petrified soul, because I have an entire chapter that talks about arrested development personality. It's probably the thickest chapter in the book that really goes into that. So I really believe that'll be a blessing to you guys. Okay. Again, everything is personal. I mentioned this. If you resort to flattery to maintain peace or avoid conflict with a narcissist, that is something that is another sign. That is something you do, but it is a sign that, you know, why would you flatter anybody? Why would you do that? Okay, especially somebody that's abusive, especially that's somebody that's dysfunctional. Why would you flatter that person? So if you find yourself doing that, again, that is something where you will find out that most likely that, you know, that's a Jezebel or a narcissistic personality. If you're always walking on eggshells, you see a problem, you identify the dysfunction, you know things are wrong, you know things are like I said, broken and dysfunctional, and, you know, disorder, chaotic, confusion, and you go to that person and you begin to talk about that, but you have this sense that, you know, man, I'm almost afraid to bring up anything, because if I do, it's like walking on eggshells. They're going to explode the moment I bring it up. So again, in the case in point of the husband that is out there doing whatever, now he comes home 5 in the morning, you get out of bed and you it's wrong, it's obviously dysfunctional, it's not right, that's not normal behavior. It's going to be, what are you trying to control me? You're a Jezebel. You can't, you know, I can't do anything. I'm a man. You just need to, you know, sit here and do your part. How dare you question me? Whatever, and so on and such and such. And again, that's designed so next time you kind of come as that little puppy dog, as it were, like, oh, you know, can I talk to you? You know, I mean, especially in a marriage or a friendship or in a church where you have a congregant, pastor, you know, what have you, relationship. It shouldn't be something where you come walking on eggshells to your pastor. And I've had tons of people that have contacted us and said, you know, I want my, you know, this, that, and the other's going on. And I would say something like, well, you need to talk to your leader. You need to talk to your pastor. Oh, no, I can't do that. I'm like, why? Well, because I'm just going to be rebuked. I'm going to be this, that, and the other. And maybe you will. But it shouldn't, when you have that mindset that I can't go to somebody, I can't go to my spouse, I can't go to my husband, I can't go to my wife, I can't go to my friend, I can't go to my parents, I can't go to my children, for that matter. Okay, whoever it may be, that is a sign of a narcissistic personality, that spirit of Jezebel operating in someone. Okay, so you're always walking on eggshells. And if they're a covert narcissist, they may not lash out and attack you, but they will end up, this is really crazy, they will actually end up becoming very dramatic and theatrical and have crocodile false tears and, you know, go into the cuddly duddly, nobody loves me, nobody cares type thing. That's designed to gather a group around them support the narcissist, okay, and make you look like you are the evil, wicked witch of the West. Okay, you got that? So, again, you got to watch out for this type of stuff. Okay, they're always bringing up the past. So if you're connected to somebody and they're always bringing up the past, well, you back in 2007, don't you remember you did so and so and such? And like, come on, that's 10 years ago. Or you could be married and they can bring up the past. It may not even be the past about you. It could be the past about a circumstance or situation they went through, but they're assigning that to you to get you to shut up. I mean, at the end of the day, Jezebel wants you to shut up. The narcissist wants you to shut up. Just do what they say. Remember, it's always about them. So, you know, again, that goes back to no empathy, no concern for you. Just shut up and deal with it. You know, quit being so weak. Just deal with it. This is how it goes. Okay? And then they'll get spiritual and they'll say, I have a relationship with God. I'm talking to God. God's good with me. Well, yeah, God's good with you, but God doesn't, you know, God doesn't want you to, you know, even though you're born again, he doesn't want you to be bound by Jezebel, and he doesn't want you to have a narcissistic personality where you're controlling, manipulating, dominating, intimidating, and releasing all this witchcraft against people. So, again, you have to watch out for, you know, bringing up the past, never letting you. And as I'm talking to you students, I get all these things that come on all the different people and stories and events and issues that I've dealt with, you know, with people in life, and I've seen this stuff. You know, I've seen this where, you know, the person's always bringing up the past, and it was just so sad. And they also believe that others are envious of them. Again, it's all about them. And they will gaslight you, and we'll go into gaslighting in a second, but I see you guys are throwing some comments out there. Oh, boy, I missed a few here. Victoria says, Jezebel wants to be worshipped, idolatry. Yeah, that's the third book we wrote on it. We talk about that. Gabriella says, you don't want to flatter by all means, but it's pure survival. Yeah, and see right there. You see that's good you brought that up. So when you feel that you have to flatter just to survive the relationship or the abuse, the narcissistic abuse, that is a very clear indication right there. Yep, narcissist is right there, Jezebel is right there, could be sleeping in your bed. Okay, you got that? Let's see here, to keep them calm. Yeah, right. Well, again, but they plan on that. They rely on that. Contending with Jezebel is no different than contending with the narcissist. Okay. Now, when I say contend in Dixie in a moment, when she gives you her testimony, you'll see how she contended, how she challenged, and she did not tolerate. Listen, you cannot tolerate Jezebel, meaning you cannot tolerate a narcissist. You have to deal with it. You have to let them know, I see you. I know what you're doing. I'm not afraid of you. You're not going to, you know, well, I'll kill you. No, you won't. This is why when we do counseling and deliverance with people, we teach people who they are in Christ. You must know that you have more power and you have authority over Jezebel as well as over the narcissistic personality. Okay? Now, you may be sitting there, oh, I tried that. Well, I'm not saying there's not a time to separate. I'm not saying there's not a time to leave. And I'm not saying there's not a time to cut the cord. There is, certainly that. But at the end of the day, remember, you're still dealing with the spiritual problem. You may have a narc husband or a narc wife, but at the end of the day, it's a spiritual issue. And you have to be bold. You have to challenge. You have to contend. You have to confront. You cannot tolerate, and you have to say, I see this. And if you love your husband or you love your wife, you'll let them know, I'm going to help you. I'm not going to run from you, but you're not going to abuse me. You're not going to beat me. You're not going to cuss me out. You're not going to cheat on me. You're not going to manipulate and use me and use the children and all this. And you're not going to gaslight me. You're not doing it anymore. Okay? Now, there'll probably be an explosion. But what's that? There's no, I mean, that's like me when I've contended with Jezebel in our ministry or our church or whatever. Yeah, there's always this aftershock, this big explosion. But that's part of the process to get you to back down. It's again, it goes back to what Victoria was saying about Jezebel and Elijah. Elijah's doing all this other stuff. Jezebel puts a bounty, puts a hit on his life. What does he do? He goes running. He should have went right back to Mount Carmel and did it again. He should have shut down the rain again. But what did he do? He probably was bound in some area himself and ended up running. Okay? You got that? All right. So, yeah, right. Okay, so I got that. I went through a lot of constant call me rebellious woman. I just want to keep peace, crazy relationship. Yeah. Definitely trying to keep the peace and keep calm. LOL, so much time. So much all the time. Yes, they are suspicious of everyone, and everyone is a spy to them. Yeah, and good. I'm glad to see you contended, challenged, and did not tolerate. And then Cassandra says, I was married to a person like this. He refused to help me. Divorce was the only way out, and even that was an attack. You know, let me just share something with you guys. I'm totally against divorce. I am. I understand it. There are times for it, clearly, but I'm against it. I hate to see it, but I understand it. And I understand the scriptures and all that stuff, and I understand what Christ, said and what Moses said. I understand all that. Here's the thing I always tell people. The problem is you got married to the wrong person in the first place. That's the real problem, okay? So now you're in a situation, what do you do? Well, it can work, and, sometimes you learn to love and you learn to manage the conflict and all that stuff, and if you love the person, it can work. But there are times where you just, you married for all the wrong reasons, and you married, you married, an axe murderer, as it were. You married Jason from Friday the 13th. I mean, you married somebody bad because of the hurt and the pain, typically in the rejection that you had. You just got into a relationship that you shouldn't have got into. Now, what do you do with that? Okay. Again, that's your personal decision. I always try to tell people, or tell people that anything can work. I've seen people change. I've seen people get delivered, and that's what our goal is here. Okay. When you have to hide deliverance class, you're with the Jezebel. Well, yeah. I mean, and listen, you can't live like this anymore. You can't do it. No one, I've said this before, no one should be controlled. Nobody should be under the yoke of witchcraft and Jezebel's witchcraft and a narcissist. No one should have to, submit to that. And this is why I say you have to contend with it, you have to challenge with it, and if it's that bad, you have to separate. Separation is not a bad thing, okay? Okay, now, yeah, the Bible says separate, if you're both in agreement for a time of, prayer and fasting. Well, that's if you're both in agreement. But if the person's either an unbeliever or they're a believer but they're walking like a flake fruit nut, then, yeah, you have to separate and say, you're not going to do this anymore. You're not going to do it. We legally we'll separate, but you're not going to do that. And you're going to change, and that's how it goes. I know if I was doing something, my wife would give me that ultimatum. If she was doing something like that, I would give her the ultimatum. You will change. You're going to change. I'm not going to. See, I really want people to get free. Stop wasting your entire life. God doesn't want you to waste your entire life. Can you imagine my wife if she would have stayed married? I think she was married 10 years to this guy that was a narc, Jezebel. Can you imagine if she would have just suffered? And that was some of the advice that she was getting. She'll share all this with you. she just suffer, just go through. No, no, you got to get your life back, because now children suffer, relationship suffers, and then you live your life miserable. God doesn't want anybody miserable. Where do we get this stuff from? Well, that's just your lot in life. No, it isn't. No, it's not. So again, I do not tell people to suffer and just, that's just the way it is. That's your lot in life. It is not your life and lot in life. You take authority, you take dominion, you take your life back. In our book that's coming out, again, the last chapter, we talk about how to take your life back. Okay? What's this? My armor bearer harbored a Jezebel. Well, that's why I don't believe in armor bearers. Okay? I don't know, armor bearers. I don't believe in armor bearers. You don't need anybody to bear your armor, carry your armor. Okay? That's exactly what Jezebel wants. An armor bearer to get close to you and begin to manipulate, control, gaslight, do everything. It's all designed to take you out. You don't need an armor bearer. What you need is right people that can serve in the kingdom and release the gift that maybe of serving to help you do some things. Okay? All this stuff with armor bearers and all that other stuff, it's religious, and Jezebel loves religion. It's just plain and simple. Again, I see this stuff operating all the time. Well, I'm not going to go into what an armor bearer is. I don't want to do that. Michelle says, that's interesting, and some of this has happened in my family for generations, and when someone decided to step up and speak out, me, I was told it was my lot in life. Yeah, see what I'm saying? I said no and began to stand up. Once I submitted to Christ, things significantly changed. That's what it's all about, knowing who you are in Christ. Okay? Now, I'm going to, ready? Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have Mama Dixie come in here and share with you guys, and you can, and I really believe that you need to ask her some questions, if you like, about things you went through. So, do you want to sit here? Or you?
I can sit.
Okay, you sit there. She sit over there. But anyways, so sweetheart, I've heard you say this, many times just to me, and then of course as we're ministering to people. But kind of share with everybody, what you went through. Take them back to that moment with meeting that man, and then how things kind of transpired, how you got to the point where you actually married them, and kind of share your story with everybody.
Okay, well, I really have to go back to when I was a child, because
Okay.
I think that's where the problem where it came in. I had a very low self-esteem. I thought I was ugly. I would, if anybody complimented me and said, "Oh, you're beautiful, you're pretty," I would say, "No, I'm not," because I had a
Some rejection. There was rejection.
severe rejection, to where I could never. I really tormented my mother, my stepdad, my siblings, because of my rejection. I was always constantly looking at them to make me feel accepted, but yet inwardly I did not feel accepted. No matter what they did, it was no way to get me to feel accepted, because I had this view of myself from the rejection that they didn't want to be bothered with me, that they did not want to be a part of my life, and it made me so susceptible for bad relationships, even friendships. As a child, my friendships were always very how do I say it? They always ended in a lot of turmoil, mm-hmm. because of the fact that how I viewed myself. So I was an extreme people pleaser.
Right.
So I constantly was trying to please people to make them accept me, and so I wouldn't feel rejected. But yet I would reject them because I didn't want to be rejected. So it was really just bad. Okay, in that respect, because of what I had experienced. And so I was a product. I was a child of rape. My mother was raped by my father.
Okay.
That's what, at least that's what she told me.
Right.
But later I found out that my mother was dating my father, and they were they were sweethearts. But
she was promiscuous.
Right. But he found out. Well, no, not so much she was promiscuous, but she was disobedient, because she would actually be in places that she was told by her parents not to go. So her disobedience put her in a situation that she shouldn't have been in. But
were you born out of wedlock?
I was born out of wedlock.
Okay,
I was born out of wedlock. Right. And so my mom, of course, I was born out of wedlock, born from my dad was married at the time when he was dating my mom. So it was
so your biological dad was married,
right,
to another woman.
To another woman.
Got together with your mom.
Got together with my mom.
And you were conceived.
And I was conceived.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So that right there, problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I said my life was
right.
so anyway. So what happened is that my mother never told me that I had that my stepfather was not my father.
Right.
But as a child, I think people think children are stupid, but children are very, very smart. Right. Children are they're very sensitive to spiritual things, and they're very sensitive. So I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know what. I thought I was adopted. I thought I was adopted because I didn't look like my mom. I didn't look like my stepdad. Right. And I looked so different from them that people would ask her, whose little girl is that?
Right.
And it was, so of course that even furthered the rejection.
That brings in trauma.
Right. And this is where I believe that I became a target for that narcissist, because my mother was really kind of, a Jezebel herself.
Right.
So, my mother was Jezebel, had a Jezebel spirit. Well, she would, so, but that narcissistic spirit, that the behavior was, I believe was attracted to me because I did not have the right view of myself.
Okay, so watch this now. So did you feel, with all that, getting to the place where you were a teenager, did you feel that you were complete, or did you feel like something was lacking in you?
Oh, I definitely felt like something was lacking.
Right. So see, that's always a danger. When we go into our adolescent years, our teenage years, and we don't know how to approach life, that means that we're incomplete, because that's the parent's job. And in your case, that wasn't done. Obviously, in my case, it wasn't done either, but it wasn't done. And so now she has to figure it out herself.
Right. So then, and as a child, my way of coping with this, being the oddball, was that I would tell my siblings that I was from outer space.
Okay. Outer space. There you go.
And I was like, okay.
Because what has happened is you make things up. Now that's a lie.
Yeah.
Forget
absolutely
the outer space part. That's a lie, but that's designed to cover up the inferiority and the hurt. There's hurt there. There's pain there.
Pain.
And how do I cope with that? I have to create some type of illusion. This is how this stuff works, people. Go ahead.
Okay. So I made up this thing, and I told them that I was from outer space, and I was here as an alien, and of course, my siblings, I don't know if they thought about this, but this was my way of feeling like I was connected somewhere. Because I knew I was not, something was lacking. I wasn't connected in my family.
Right.
So I was thinking I'm connected there, because you want to be accepted.
Gotta be accepted.
Nobody wants to be rejected.
Right.
They want to be accepted. So to bring it down to this is I want to share this, because this is what had the door open for me to get into this relationship with this man. And matter of fact, when I was very young. I was 15 years old, and when I met him, he was a very nice looking man, very good looking guy, and athlete. As a matter of fact, that's where I saw him, he played basketball.
Okay. Remember, I told you, likable.
Go ahead. Very likable, very athlete, very popular. because he was an athlete, and so, but what happened is that the first meeting with him, he rejected me.
Okay.
So see how the narcissist does? Well, he rejected me, so I was like, well, okay, I'm already feeling rejected. I'm already, feeling like, well, I'm not, So I immediately said, well, forget him. I'm not, But then later, that first rejection as a tool to get back.
So how were you lured back in?
Through the, well, I wasn't really rejecting you. I really, you're really a beautiful girl, and I wasn't really rejecting you, but did reject me, and I knew. But remember, I also was looking for the rejection too. So that negative expectancy brought that rejection to, brought him to reject me. And then once I was rejected, I put up the defense, like, okay, I'm rejected. I knew I was going to be rejected, and whatever. So I did not want to have anything to do with him now. Now I was like, okay, I want nothing to do with it. But that personality is so cunning that he kept coming around. He kept coming around. And I was kind of like, whatever, but he kept coming around until I found myself at this particular time. I talked to my dad, my real dad, and he told me that my mother had lied to me, that I actually was, because my mother finally told me that I had about my dad when I was 14. So I lived for 14 years under this fear that I was going to be adopted, and then I found out I had a different dad. I was so relieved. I was like, oh, I'm not adopted, because I was like, I thought that might be the most horrible thing. I don't know, kids, but I was so relieved. But then when I talked to him, he said, oh, your mother just told you that I'm not really your dad. So, and I had never seen this man. And the reason I talked to him was because I had a family member tell me to call your dad. Your dad wants to talk to you. Why don't you call him? And I said, he does? So here's a rejection. See, I'm thinking, oh, he wants to talk to me. All right, I'm being accepted. And then when I talked to him, it was like door slammed in the face.
Now let me. This is, and I'll interrupt every once in a while. So what you have here, just so you know, you see how the spirit works, the spirit of Jezebel. Again, this is why I always tell you, it's a network. Don't think in terms of one. You have a couple things. You have the thing with her dad, who somebody says your dad wants to talk to you, which to her would be, that's a good thing.
Right.
But then when she gets there, he says...
No, my dad wasn't expecting to talk to me.
Right, and he says, I'm not your dad.
Right. He says,
so further rejection.
Yeah.
Then with the man who would eventually become her first husband, he doesn't want to have anything to do with her, kind of pushes her away. There's some rejection there. But he goes back after her and pulls her back in. Now this is what's called the push-pull of a narcissist. They push you away only to pull you back.
Right.
All of this is a strategy,
yeah.
And this is within the narcissistic personality. This is what's called the honeymoon stage. Go ahead.
Okay. But then, like I said, so with the dad, so then there was a further rejection and hurt, because I had never had anyone to say anything negative to me about my mother, and I was, of course, livid. I was thinking, what is this? What's wrong with this man? This man can't be any relation to me,
Right.
And but later I found out from him that his wife was on the phone, but he was divorced from the wife that he was with my mother. That was a divorce thing. But this new wife who he'd been married to for probably like about 20 years.
And she was a Jezebel as well. She controlled.
Right,
she was controlling him.
Right. She was controlling him. So I found out that my dad was very much an Ahab. Because on the phone he said that because she was listening
controlling him,
and he was afraid to say the truth. And later he told me, yeah, you are my daughter and whatever. But the thing that I'm trying to get at is that because of those situations, and I mean it's a lot of more detail, but because I was, as a child, first of all, the being born out of wedlock, the severe rejection from that. Because my mother then I looked like my dad. So the rejection from my mother to constantly see a child that's looking like this man that she's angry with, looking back at her. And so she's constantly seeing him, because I look like my dad. My dad couldn't. I mean, if he said I wasn't his child, he couldn't even pull that off. All my sisters and brothers say, "You look like him more than anybody else." So he knew I was his child, but because the Ahab spirit that was in him, he said that time. But then later he did say, you know, I know you're my daughter, and he, you know, validated. But the thing is that wasn't for that was years later now.
Many years later.
Many years later. So here I am. I'm angry with him. The first time I've ever been angry with anybody in my life. I was always angry at me. I was always the problem, you know. But this now I was angry. I was angry at him.
So you had a core developmental issue.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You were incomplete. You had a tremendous amount of rejection.
Right.
You were the black sheep of the family, or you were actually the light sheep of the family, because like you said, your mom was dark, your dad was darker, your brothers and sisters were dark, and you were of a lighter tone. So you felt out of place, which all plays in that rejection. So your foundation was not strong.
No.
So that's what we're saying here is, so now she's gonna get to the point where, okay, now this guy comes in to play. He initially pushes her away, pulls her back, which is a form of gaslighting. It is a strategy of a narcissist.
Right. And then he did it again because I got pregnant. You know, I had sex out of wedlock, same curse. Got pregnant. By him.
Right.
And that's why I'm telling you.
Now let's just transparent. This was not consensual.
No, this was not consensual. This was a forced.
This was a forced.
Right.
Forced sexual encounter. That's called rape. Okay.
So it's the same. See the repeat.
So So you have the generational thing here. You see how it's working. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And but anyway, I didn't even know though. I didn't even know I was raped.
Because you weren't taught.
I wasn't taught. I was really pretty sheltered. But the thing is that once I got pregnant, he says, "Well, go to your mother." So there's the pushback.
There's the push.
Go back to your mother. And but then I was like, well, I don't want to go to my mother because I was told by my family that good girls get married. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get married. I wanted to be a good girl. I didn't want to be a bad girl. So then now I'm wanting to get married so that I could be accepted. See, still being accepted from the rejection, still want to be accepted, you know. So I did not go to my mother. He did marry me, and at first it was just at the beginning of the marriage it was horrible because I was 16 years old. I had never ever been with a man really. That time to me was horrible. It was like a nightmare, and I did not want him to touch me. I didn't want him to look at me. I didn't want him to. But I wanted to be a good wife.
Right. Because you knew that.
But I knew that because I was like, I knew you had to be. You know, I wanted to be good because I wanted to be accepted. See, there it goes back that.
Now all this is playing in. Just so you know, all this is playing into the narcissist. Mm-hmm. You see what she said. You know, there was the pushback. Go to your parents. Go back home. But then she comes back, gets married. Now that's called hook, line, and sinker. He's got her because now what's happened is a dependency has been created.
Yes.
Where as perverted as it is, as we're now, and she probably didn't even know. Now there's a dependency where I can't go there.
Right.
I can't go to my house. I can't go to my mom, my dad, or whatever. I now have to go here. He pushed her out so that the fangs can go in deep.
Right. And then he began with the mind control. You know, nobody wants you. And remember, I already had the rejection thing.
So now he tells you nobody wants you.
Nobody wants you, and I'm the only person that wants you. And
classic narcissist.
Yeah. And you won't be able to make it without me. You don't know anything.
Classic.
You can't make it without. And so I was very, like I said, very young, but I wasn't dumb. I was very smart.
Yeah, you're very smart.
But I was dumb to that spirit. Very dumb to that.
Right.
Didn't understand why. Believed when he would say things to me. Believed and trusted him you know, and we were saying things. But all the while, though, something in me was just like, this something's not right. Something's not right, because it was like I'm gonna beat you up, but then I'm gonna tell you how much I love you. I'm gonna physically beat you, but then I'm gonna tell you how much I love you. And I was like, and it was really about to drive me nuts. So the gaslighting was really that works. That manipulation works.
So once the honeymoon stage was over, and the euphoria or whatever it may be, once that's done, now what she's entering into, what she's sharing with you guys, is called the devaluation stage. Now he has to devalue her, okay, to really break her down to get what he wants.
Right. And so I was not allowed to have any friends.
Control.
I was not. I went to school because I got pregnant. I was 16.
You were still in high school.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I got pregnant at 15. I had the baby at 16, and I finished school. So I was permitted to go to school, but I wasn't permitted to talk to anybody.
Right.
I couldn't talk to anybody. I had to go to school and come back,
right.
And I had to literally make an account of my day. From whatever
so you had to report back to him
and
say everywhere you've been, what you did.
Everywhere I went, everybody I talked to, everything I did. And I was so afraid. See, that's why I know fear is so foul, because I was so afraid to tell him anything that wasn't the truth. I wouldn't even lie. I mean, and my mom would say, well, if you get in trouble, I mean, at least I'd go and have some fun, and you're going to get beaten, you're going to be beat down, because my mom was telling me, get out of this situation now.
Right.
You need to leave. But
easier said than done. Yeah.
Right, but the hooks that were so in my mind, and of course I wanted to be accepted. And then the thing I didn't want to do was I didn't want my children to grow up where they weren't with their father.
There you go.
And I let him know that. And because he knew what happened to me and my dad, and then I said, well, I don't want that to happen to my children.
Again, this is the information.
Yeah.
He gets information.
Yes.
He knows she doesn't want the children to grow up without a father, because everybody wants a normal family. So that's another form of manipulation. Did he ever use scripture against you?
Oh my goodness, yes. He wasn't even a believer, but he had the Bible open, and he would go to scriptures, and he would use scriptures on me, and he would tell me, he would go out, and he would go out all the time. Friday, Saturday,
right.
Sunday night, he was gone. But he told me I needed to stay home, because a good wife stays home with, doesn't go out, doesn't do things like that. Yeah. And then he would use the scriptures to solidify his so-called counseling of me, to keep me in that place where I was really like a prisoner. I was a prisoner. I was kind of like those people that have the thing on their ankle.
Yeah.
And they go out, but they can only go so far.
Yeah, house arrest.
And,
house arrest.
Yeah, I was like I was house, because I couldn't go wherever I pleased.
Right.
I had to go only where I was told I could go, and then come.
So you had to report everything you did to him.
Yeah.
But yet he was out.
Oh yeah.
Running the streets.
Oh yeah.
At you call them jooks down south, I know that, but bars. He was unfaithful.
Yeah, he was unfaithful.
So he's with other women, sleeping with other women, carrying on and all this other stuff. Now, what's interesting is, and again, because I know her story, and it's a great story, and people are commenting on your testimony, by the way, very awesome. Now, you had one child who's our oldest daughter now, but you had her, but then you got pregnant twice more.
Right.
And this is with a narcissist. So
yeah,
talk about that.
So he said, we need to have more children, because we have more children, it's going to bring us closer together.
See that right there?
Yeah.
See that?
Everything was manipulative.
Right.
Everything.
Right. So we'll become closer.
Everything.
We'll be a more closely knitted family. We'll be more loving. We'll have more love for each other if we have another child. Now, the children are used as tools. They're used as pawns themselves, okay?
Right.
To not so much, manipulate the kids, although there's going to be tremendous effect on them. It was designed to obviously bring you in more.
Right, bring me in more, because he said that the whole purpose, he was like, well, we really need to be a family. We really need to be a family. And what was I looking for? I wanted to be accepted. I wanted a family. I
Right.
wanted to belong.
Right.
But this way of belonging, even though how sick it still was me feeling that I belonged.
Yeah.
So, and so the Spirit was very much had his claws in me, and I was so fearful. So I trusted everybody,
Right. Right.
I didn't have a problem with trusting people.
Right.
I trusted everybody.
Right. Well, and you want to be, and you want to be liked by people.
Liked, right? Because I wanted to be liked.
Let me fast forward you, because I know people probably have some great questions for you, but let me kind of fast forward you just for a moment here. So he was, tell people, kind of like, he was abusive.
Uh-huh.
And to what degree was he abusive to you?
He was.
Verbally.
Verbally abusive, physically abusive.
Physically abusive.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sexually abusive.
Sexually abusive.
Okay. So basically, it was like
even mentally.
Mentally, right? So he played the whole psychological warfare, mind games towards you. But when she says, and again, her story is awesome. It is an awesome testimony. When she says abused, she was beat by her husband. I think at one time you mentioned that he would take sticks.
Well, the last time that he hit me, he said, "Oh, you think you've been abused?" He said, "Well, I'm gonna show you abuse." And he had this limb, and he beat me.
So he had a tree limb.
And he
beat you with that.
Right. Because other times it would be like a punch or head or
a punch, a
something,
hit,
or slap. It was like more of that, But this time he says, "Okay, you think you're abused?" Because I went
to his mother. He threatened to kill you?
Oh, he choked me. One particular night to where I passed out.
She passed. Do you hear that? She passed out.
I thought I was dead because I thought it was.
You
black.
blacked out. Yeah, you blacked out.
And I was like, "Okay, Lord, I give my spirit to you."
Yeah. So yeah.
I was a kid.
And you're what at this time? What, maybe 20?
I was 19.
19.
Yeah. 19.
So beat physically. She told me she was black and blued, bleeding. This is not,
But what he would do is, when he would do that, he would abuse me physically, but then he would say, "I love you." The day that he hit me with that, when he hit me with that it was like a tree branch, and I was he beat me so I couldn't even stand up. Yeah. So he picked me up. And he took me and put me in a tub of cool water, and he bathed me.
You're hearing this stuff?
Cool water, and he said, "I love you. I'm just trying to teach you. I'm trying to teach you something. I'm trying to teach you, and I'm just crying, and I'm just crying. I'm not saying anything. I was so terrified of him. I never talked back to him.
Right.
Not once. I never, whatever he said,
shut your mouth. You just did it.
I agree.
So he had all this control, domination, intimidation over you. He beat you. And again, you can go on. Your story is unbelievable and all the details. But you get to a point now. You have 3 children.
Right.
Okay. But now you get to a point. Talk about the point where we're at the point where you got to say, you know what?
Okay. What happened is I gave my life to the Lord, but I really believe I did as a child. I gave my life, but I really started walking with the Lord. I started reading my Word. I started going to Bible study. I started, and I started learning about who I was in Christ, and I started questioning things. Mm-hmm. I started questioning things with Him. I was like, "You're always telling me about me not being a good wife, but are you a good husband? Are you a good father?"
So now you got some pushback. Pushback. Okay.
So the pushback really made him more violent.
Right.
More where he then started where he used to just go out the weekend. Now he would go out during the week. Okay. But now, mind you, I didn't say this, but I would leave now. When he would be
he would go out.
I would I would leave him and I would go to my mom's. Okay. I would go to my mom's and then I would go back because he would say, "You need to come back. You got to be a good wife. Mm-hmm. You got to be a good mother."
Probably the kids.
The children. So I would go back, and but what but knowing who I was is what I'm trying to get to. When I began to know who I was in Christ,
Yes.
it made me begin to discern things.
So you're coming to a place where you're starting to get strengthened.
Yeah, I'm discerning. I'm like, what is this? This is not normal.
Yes.
This is not. Even though I was made to think that this was normal,
Yeah.
I was made to think this is what all marriages go through.
Right.
This is
Now
how,
you get a revelation.
yeah,
This is
and
not normal.
No, it's not normal. And then I remember the first deliverance I went to a church, and I'll never forget. And the lady told me, she says, you said you have a man-hating spirit, and you need to be delivered.
Wow.
And I did, because remember I told you what my dad did to me,
Yeah.
and I hated my dad for that. And then now here is someone that's supposed to be my husband, and he's abusing me.
You have a spirit angry against men.
Yes, against men.
That you need to get delivered
yeah,
from.
and I got delivered from that, and so I knew about deliverance when I was really young. I knew about demons.
Right.
I knew.
Right.
So anyway, but I did go back to him. I did go back to him because I still wanted to. I wanted my marriage to work.
Sure.
I wanted to work, and I thought it was something I could do to make it work. I thought, now here I got delivered, and I'm praying now.
Did you think you could fix him?
Yes.
See, you hear that?
Yes.
She thought she could fix him.
Matter of fact, you know what? When I realized I couldn't fix him, is I had gotten so frustrated with everything I was trying to do to fix it. I tried to do everything to put. That's why I said you cannot please a demon.
Yeah.
You cannot please.
That's right. You cannot please a demon.
Reason with the demon. You cannot think that you can talk with the demon. That's no. Shut up and come out. Shut up and come out. So here I am. I was so frustrated because nothing I was doing was working. Because see, I was trying to reason. I was trying to talk, and this guy was so severely possessed.
And you were praying.
Yeah,
you were praying, and you were doing
and so this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Okay. I remember I'm like, okay, I did everything. I've did everything except some things I had just said I wasn't going to do sexually that he wanted to do to me.
Right.
I'm like, no, you're not going to do that to me.
Right.
And I did put my foot down on that. It's like, no. But this is what happened. When I got to that point, I told God, I said, Lord, either you save him or I'm going to not eat anything else. I'm not going to drink anything. I'm going to sit in this corner because I've done all I can do, and I just want to die.
Right.
So, and that's when the Lord spoke to me.
Right.
And he said, Dixie, I cannot make him come to me.
Now, let me ask you a question, and again, I want to go as fast as possible for sake of time, but because I know you left him. Mm-hmm. Now a couple some that she left out. She divorced him once.
Oh yeah,
she divorced him once. I know
yeah.
there's just so much here, but just to throw it in there. You divorced him once.
And he told me, he said, nobody's ever going to marry you.
And then
I didn't want to be by myself.
He gaslit her, said nobody will ever want you. Who wants a woman with, how many kids you have?
3 kids.
With 3 kids.
No, 2 kids.
2 kids at the time.
2 kids.
Who would want a woman, yada, yada, yada. And so then she comes back, marries him again. Now I know the story, and she then, but she also left and went to California.
Oh, yeah.
And she went to, I don't know if you guys know Dr. Frederick Casey Price out there in California. Now, just when you talk to Dr. Price about
because I did. I went to counseling with 2 different pastors.
Okay.
Actually, with 3 pastors. Mm-hmm. But with Dr. Price.
Okay, you talked to Betty and Fred.
Right. He said to me, do not go back. He said, if he loves you and if he wants to change, he will come find you. He said, a man is a hunter. I'll never forget his words.
Right.
He said, if a man wants you, he said, he will hunt and he
will change. He will change.
Yeah. If he wants. So he said, don't go back. But I didn't. I didn't listen to him.
Right. So you went back.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's get to the place. So then
I remarried him.
You remarried. Mm-hmm. Now you got more abuse, more narcissistic abuse, physical abuse, all this stuff. But you got to that moment where you said enough is enough, and you dealt with it. You didn't tolerate it, and it caused him to back down.
Well, that's the thing. I got when I realized who I was in Christ, and realized the authority that I had. Because see, before then, remember, I was terrified.
Right.
I was,
You were afraid,
everything
right?
he says, whatever he did,
Fear.
and I would see the demons in his eyes. I would
Right.
see, I would look at him, and I would see,
Right.
and so I was so afraid,
Mhm.
and I had to get free from that fear of him.
Right.
And when I did,
You got free from,
when I
and you
got
got free from the fear inside. You
and
just dealt with
realized
it.
who I was,
Right.
that's when things changed.
So then he comes again to try to abuse you or whatever. What did you do? How do you deal with that?
Well,
what did you tell him? What did you do?
Well, I told him. Well, let me back up.
Go ahead.
He when I realized who I was, and I had to, I realized that I had authority. That's what changed things. But before that happened, I had left him, and I went to go stay in like a home for.
Like a shelter type thing, or?
Well, it wasn't shelter. It was like a home for people who are in drugs and they're recovering drugs.
Center.
And so I remember being there, and I remember being so afraid that I saw him crawling up the side of the house.
So you're having visions and nightmares and hallucinations of being attacked or being tormented. And,
right. And I was like, oh my God, he's gonna crawl up the side of the house,
Right.
And but what happened is he didn't crawl up the side of the house. He came right through the door. I was upstairs in the bedroom with
So he
the
actually
kids.
came through the door.
He came right in the house, came right in the door, and I was just like, wow. So that fear, that's why I was like, you got to understand that spirit, it gets its power from fear. It gets and when he came through the door, he says, "You're going home right now," and he grabbed my son and he ran and he started running after. He came back and he grabbed me. And I'm in the house. And they're having Bible study downstairs.
Right, he's acting up, okay, at a Bible study.
But they're having Bible study, and they never came out of Bible study.
Okay.
And I'm, and he's cursing and yelling, and what are you doing? And I'm like, oh my goodness, and I'm thinking, why won't somebody come and rescue me,
Right.
And so, like I said, they were in Bible study, and we had to pass by the room they were having Bible study in to leave. So I was thinking, well, somebody's going to come out, and there was a lot of guys there, and it was probably like maybe about 15 people, but there were like maybe 5 or 6 big guys. I'm thinking they're going to come and they're going to just rescue. No, they didn't move.
So what did you do?
And so I said, thank you for letting me be here. I'm getting ready to leave.
Okay, and then?
And they said, well, do you want to leave?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no. And they said, well, you don't have to leave.
Right, you don't have. So somebody told you, Dixie, you don't have to leave.
Right. And I said, I don't have to leave.
Came to the realization,
I don't have
to do this anymore.
So what happened is that he looked at me, he looked at them, and he ran out the door.
He ran out the door.
Yeah, he ran out the door. What I found out was the power of prayer and authority from that meeting.
Right.
Because they told me, they said, there was no need of us to physically go do anything to him.
Right. Because it's a spiritual, because you're dealing with a spiritual thing.
Over demons, right. But I didn't understand that.
Right.
That was my first encounter to know the authority that we had over demons.
Right. So you dealt with it spiritually. You knew who you were in Christ. You got confirmation or affirmation from people that says you don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
So you so mentally and spiritually, internally, at that point you put your foot down. You said no more. And again, I remember you saying that, but you got to the place where something was going on. He was going to hit you or do something, whatever, and you basically said, and I don't know the exact words, but you basically said you're not going to do that.
Right.
You said you're not going to do that to me.
Actually, we were in a car coming back from out to my family, visiting my family. I was visiting my family. He came to pick me up, and actually his brother-in-law was in the car, and he was just cussing and talking, and he was like, he was just
acting Jezebel.
Yeah, just crazy things. And but his brother-in-law tried to take up for me.
Okay.
He said, well, man, your wife didn't do anything. So he turned around to try to hit him in the.
So he tried to punch his own brother-in-law.
Yeah, from saying,
okay.
mind
so he's getting violent.
business.
Here comes the violent spirit out.
And then like I said, I had gotten to the point. No, you're not going to do this. You're not going to sit there and hit him.
So then you said to him, you're not going to hit him.
Yeah, and you're not going to hit me.
And what did he say to you?
And he said, who do you think you're talking to?
Right. So he challenged you back.
I'm talking to you.
See. So stop. Right there. That's where we want to go. So she knew internally first who she was, but then when the outward, manifestation took place in him, where he's now threatening his brother-in-law and says, "Well, who do you think you are?" She stood up for herself, and she said, "You're not going to do it anymore. You're not going to do it to me. You're not going to do it to him." And of course, then she moves on with her life. You left.
No,
you got divorced.
No, I didn't get divorced from that situation. What ended up happening is that he did. When I said you're not going to do that to me, then he turned around to hit him again. And when he turned around to hit him, I took my shoe off and I hit him.
So basically, she clocked her husband.
First time I ever hit him. So I was terrified of him to do anything.
Now, I'm not recommending. We do not condone.
No,
we're not
do
recommending. But the point is, don't do that.
Don't do that.
But the point is that she had enough. She had enough, and she can go on. Listen, and maybe I'll have her. We'll do this again and go, because there's more to share. But again, for the sake of time, and I want to kind of look at they have some great comments and maybe some questions. I want to hit those for just a few minutes here. But we'll share more down the road to where when she actually left. Now this was down in Mississippi. She actually left down in Mississippi. How God crossed our path on a CB radio. I'll have to share that. It was amazing how God did that. But anyways, and we wouldn't even meet each other for 2 years later, something like that. But totally amazing. But so let me kind of see what you guys are saying. I've seen some comments here. Wow, quite a bit of comments. Jeez. Ooh, boy, I'm going way back. Your story is the story of most women in the black community. Somebody says, so true. Wow, such a powerful testimony. Wow, a lot of wows. Hold on here, because I saw something. Lewis says, does the spirit of rejection in people attract others with the same spirit? That's why they connect. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Let's see here. I'm glad these are recorded. Yeah, okay. You have such a powerful testimony. Thank God for deliverance. Awesome testimony. Thank you for sharing. I went through, oops, somebody hit something. I went through, where are we at here? I went through something very similar, and I've been afraid to even talk about it. Sherry says, breaking my heart for you, but praising God, you are the woman you are today. While my family told me it was my life, her story is all up in my family. Your testimony, sweetheart. No more. I am a bloodline breaker. Yes.
Amen.
Yes, you are.
Oh,
yes, you
I definitely am.
This is trauma. Is this trauma bonding? Well, everything comes from trauma in her life. Early on, that's for sure. It beats you when it says he loves you, obeys you, and mind control. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's inflicting trauma and then trying to bond through that. Yeah, it's perverted, very perverted. Janice says, wow, and I thought my abuse was bad. It keeps you going back to him. When Jesus starts to shed light on the lies he puts you, the truth will make you free. Yes. Sherry says, I was also a fixer, kind of to your point there. You feel like it's your assignment to fix them. Yeah, so, that's what ends up happening.
No, go back.
I need fresh deliverance. Lord, help me. This is hard to hear. Well, and it's your time of deliverance. It's your time of deliverance. And again, we always say deliverance works best when you know who you are, because we can cast demons out. That's easy. We always say that's easy. But you need to know who you are, okay? Let me go back up here. God bless you for sharing a powerful and necessary voice of deliverance, hope, and restoration for women. LOL, Apostle. Okay, I don't know. I probably said something. This shows us how much power we have. Yes. Where's the book? Good question. Marcy, catch these shoes. Yeah, when you hit it with the shoe. Yeah, you're funny, Marcy. Amy says, I'm currently dealing with a very similar experience with my husband. I have not left because of the children, but I know this isn't good for them either.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to, maybe we can talk about that, because what it did to the children, what it did with my relationship with my children is, that's a whole nother story that really, I believe, will help those that are dealing with having a narcissist spouse.
Yeah.
What it does to the children.
What's interesting is some of this has happened in my family for generations, and when someone decided to step up and speak out, I was told, oh, okay, I read that one. Okay, all right. Well, I believe that you guys were blessed tonight by her testimony, and from what I've seen you guys share in your comments, you certainly have. Still a lot more to talk about. I mean, there's just...
Can I say something to Amy?
Amy, yeah.
Amy, you're saying that you're currently dealing with this type of situation. Amy, the first thing I want to say to you is know who you are in Christ. Getting this information, that these classes will help you to understand what you're dealing with. This is something that's foul. Nobody is meant to live in this kind of a type of situation. God does not, he does not want us to live like that. So I want to say to you, to be sure you know who you are and do not allow anyone to abuse you. No one.
Yeah.
No one gets that pass. So, I don't know what you need to do. If he will get some help, that's the first thing. But more than that, you have to get help to recognize who you are, and that you are God's child, and you're not a pushover. You are bold. You are bold as a lion, and you're not, and you have to think and value you. See, I didn't value Dixie, but you've got to value you. I value Dixie now. You ain't gonna do now. You ask my husband. My husband wouldn't think about. He wouldn't think about hitting me.
Yeah,
I went to the extreme.
And I've never hit a woman in my life. I think men that hit women.
But I think what it did though, it did take me to the extreme to where I was like, no, nobody's gonna touch me again. Yeah. Nobody's gonna do that.
And really, we're gonna listen. I really feel led by the Lord to continue down this path, because I think we need to talk more also about the after effect, the aftershock of what happens, and even what happened initially when Dixie and I got married, and how there was carryover.
Yes.
There's carryover. So even though she was physically gone, she put her foot down, how the spirit, it's like I call it a spirit of Pharaoh. It tries to track you down and torment you the rest of your life, even when you get into another relationship. Like when Dixie and I got married, how that trauma of being married to a narcissist and Jezebel, how that carried over, and how we had to deal with it, and how we went, she went through deliverance and all that other stuff. And again, we've been married 35 years, 35 beautiful years, and have 7 children. Our marriage is great. It's rock solid. It always has been. But that doesn't mean there wasn't some things that we had to deal with. So perhaps we can talk about that to help you. The other thing that I want to do, and I'm just going to ask you guys, and then we're lights out for the night. Perhaps after this course or in between it, whatever, I really sense that there's some of you that need to go through some deliverance.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
There's some of you, perhaps not.
Absolutely.
Perhaps you just need the information, the education, so you can help others, which is perfectly fine, and I agree with that. But let me ask you this: if that's you, just if you would like to see that, just say yes, or amen, or something like that. If that's something you'd like to see, where perhaps we can do a deliverance session, because I really believe that some of you need to be, be free and get delivered from some things and root out some things, and all this trauma, all this pain, all this rejection. I mean, I can sense it and discern it just through the airwaves here of the hurt and the pain and the abuse, the trauma, the neglect, the gaslighting, all the stuff you've gone through, we need to flush this out. We need to flush this out. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll talk more about that. So, you know, I just want to let you know, you're here more than just to take a course. We're here for you. This ministry is all about people. That's what we're here for, and we want to help you. So we'll navigate that, and I'll work with my administrator. We'll figure out how to do that, but we will do that because I never want to see people's hurt remain just, you know, unaddressed. So we will do that. Yes, and you got some residue. We'll deal with all that residue and all that stuff. We'll just get, all that septic stuff. We'll just flush it down. So, amen. Well, sweetheart, I want to thank you for coming in to share. Man, your testimony is awesome. I mean, I've heard it many times, and every time just blesses me. I mean, it's just awesome. And I agree with what somebody said. You need to write a book on this. You definitely need to write a book. Amy says, I wanted him to come to Deliverance. I keep checking the website because I'm in Chicago. Yeah. Okay, well, one day we'll get to Chicago and do some Deliverance as well. So, okay, yeah, that's right. Janet's trying to get us there. I forgot about that. That's right. Janet is working on getting us there. So hopefully we can get there and do that. But listen, thank you guys. Thank you guys. You students, you're wonderful. We'll see you all next week.
Yes,
I pray that this has been a blessing.
Share my testimony.
Wonderful job.
And I believe God is going to use my testimony as a place to bring healing to a lot of women and men.
Oh, I agree. I agree. So,
praise God.
anyways, God bless you guys. As always, we love you guys. We'll see you all next week or during the week at our other times of equipping. God bless you. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
All right, bye-bye. Yep, see some of you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.